Hi, I'm Adam,
This is Kevin.
and we are Tech Guys Who Invest. This is the place for business people and investors to learn all about investing. We offer a fresh perspective on what it's like to have a day job while investing, and we share lessons learned on our investing journey. Our vision is to educate and entertain you while adding tons of value to your daily commute. Welcome to our show. Today on Tech Guys Who Invest, we're going to discuss note investing. We'll cover what it is and how it works. Note investing is Tech Guys Who Invest co-host Kevin Galang's investor identity, so he's the perfect person to explain all of this to us. Fasten your seatbelts for an educational episode of Tech Guys Who Invest.
So, Adam, I have some good news for you.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
So I won my table topics competition at Toastmasters, and the question that they provided me with was, what is the greatest challenge that you are facing today? And for those of you that don't know, table topics is an impromptu speech that you're supposed to give. You're presented with a question that you don't know beforehand, and you speak for 1 to 2 minutes. And at Toastmasters, you can compete and move on to higher and higher levels up until you're, I think, division or regional, something like that for table topics. So the question was presented to me, and I thought it was easy because I knew exactly what I was going to say. It's myself, right? And I went into this inspirational talk about how I believe each one of us in the room can be successful, but it all starts with a mindset, you believing in yourself, but also you getting out of your own way. And one of the bigger challenges within myself is this idea of comparing my own success to others. Adam and I listen to podcasts, we read articles, and it gets tough when you see people succeeding and you're thinking to yourself, man, why aren't I at that level? And you have to pause and take a step back and remember your journey is your journey. And as long as you are controlling everything that you can, working the process, sometimes the results just are out of your control. So I incorporated that and they loved it. So I'm moving on to the next round. And my question to you, Adam, is what is the biggest challenge you are facing today?
The biggest challenge I'm facing today is finding a really good multifamily deal. It's extremely difficult right now. There are, lots of things for sale out there, but the numbers are terrible. They don't work at all. And people are seeming to not care about that and buy bad deals.
So what's good in the eyes of Adam?
Well, it needs to cash flow, and it needs to be able to weather a downturn. So I believe a correction is coming, and I don't know what that's going to look like or when it's going to happen, obviously, but I stress test my deals. So if a correction comes and people, they can't afford rents and I have to drop rents by 15%, the property would still be able to put off enough revenue for me to pay the debt service and to be able to hang on to the property until we climbed out of the recession. So the numbers need to look really nice going in. The property also needs to be able to weather a storm, and I need to be able to provide a return on investment to my investors, to people who would invest capital with me in the deal. I need to be able to pay them attractive returns. So it's very difficult to find deals like that right now. So that's my biggest challenge.
Hey, I am with you in that as well.
So today we're going to talk a lot about note investing, and I'm really interested to hear about that. And so maybe one of the things we can cover is your challenge in finding deals and where you stand right now with that, and what note deals even look like for those of us who may not know what that looks like. So we're really looking forward to getting into this one today.
Let's do it, man. I'm excited.
Awesome, man. All right, let's do it. So for those of us who do not know what note investing is, it might be nice to start with that as a topic. just how note investing works. Why don't you explain for someone who may not be familiar with the concept how note investing works?
So a note is short for the term a promissory note. If you have credit card debt, if you've taken out a student loan, if you have a mortgage or a loan on your house, you have a note. You've made a promise to that lender, whether it's a credit card bank, a big bank, or the student loan entities, that you will pay them back.
Okay.
Now, that debt can be sold to other investors, to other banks, because a person who originated that note or created that note wants that money back sooner. So one of the ways that you can make money in note investing is arbitrage, buying and selling those notes. The more and more I learn about note investing, you can get extremely creative with how notes are generated, how notes are sold. It's almost eye-opening. There's like creative financing for real estate, and then that creative financing is also part of note investing. What I mean by that, Adam, let's say is you find a property and they want 100,000 down payment, and it's worth $1 million. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't have $100,000 to deploy, or I don't really feel like using that $100,000 to deploy for this property. So what you could do is you could come to somebody who has that capital and originate a note and use that property as collateral so that the note investor is protected in the event you cannot pay them back that 100,000. The remaining 900,000, the seller of that property would then carry a note. So they would become the lender and you would pay them directly. And then you would also pay the person who you got the $100,000 down from, and you would structure that however you want.
Okay, so that's a great intro into this, and I'd like to come back to the creativity piece of that because that's going to be really interesting to talk through. You and I were talking a little bit before we started recording, and it's really cool. There's some things that most people don't even realize is possible you can do with all this, and I think that'd be fun to talk about. So one of the questions I think people might have is around what the legality of some of it, or what you're allowed to do. Because I think some people, when they hear some of the things that we're going to talk about, they might think, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. Is there a way you might get in trouble for something like that? It's allowed, I guess, that kind of thing. So my question is around with originating notes. If you wanted to originate a note to help someone creatively invest, is there, are there things you have to watch out for so you don't get in trouble with that? Or is this just a perfectly legal thing to do, and the note just works as an agreement?
Well, first of all, I'm not a lawyer, so whatever I say, don't hold it against me. Just want to throw that disclaimer out there. And I know that there are laws like the Dodd-Frank law when it comes to protection of the consumer for loan origination. I know that there are certain criteria that somebody has to meet in order for a loan to be originated in their name.
Okay.
That is, I know, a big one. Another thing I know about notes is that if you're buying, let's say, a performer or a non-performer, which we'll define it shortly, if you're looking to purchase that note, you cannot contact the borrower until the note is in your possession. So it's not like you can go to an open house, take a look at it, talk to the seller, ask them why they're looking to get rid of it. You can't talk to the borrower and say, hey, why did you default, or what's going on with your job, or whatever. You just can't do that. Additionally, an additional layer to that is in certain states, you have to be licensed to collect money for that debt. I don't know all the laws yet. I'm definitely still learning, and Google is my best friend so far. I'll just Google, hey, what do contract for deeds look like in Missouri? And then some lawyer will write an article about it. Then I'll call that lawyer and ask them what their thoughts are on how much would it cost if I had to foreclose or something along those lines. And that's really how I'm learning. and I'm taking it down in notes and I'm sharing it on my podcast, all that stuff. But it's definitely a learning process, and you just have to ask the questions of the things you don't know.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so I guess it would make sense for someone to talk to their real estate attorney if they had questions and they were getting ready to enter into some kind of an agreement like that, just to cover themselves. Who writes the note up? Is that an attorney typically that does something like that? So if you wanted to originate a note with me, for example, would we just talk to our attorney and have them help us write up the paperwork, or how does that work?
I'm going to say yes, get a lawyer involved. I don't know the exact process. I know that there are licensed mortgage professionals that can originate notes, but I think when in doubt, ask the lawyer, because it's a legally binding contract that you're signing.
Okay. Yeah. And I know we're going to have a lawyer who we both know and respect on the show here in the near future. So who knows? Maybe that's something we could even talk to him about.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's right. So Kevin, you mentioned performing and non-performing. What's the difference there? What's the difference between a performing and non-performing note?
A performing note is super simple. If you pay whatever you're supposed to be paying on that note, then it's considered performing. And you may be thinking to yourself, why would somebody who's guaranteed money basically in a safe return or safe risk or safe asset, why would they want to sell that? Well, that's when we get into the weeds of velocity of money, right? You want that capital now before, instead of having to wait the 30 years before that mortgage is up. You can get it now. Maybe it wouldn't be that full price, but let's say it's $100,000. You may get 80% of that. And then now you have $80,000 to redeploy in some different capacity. Maybe it's to originate another loan at a higher interest rate. That's when we get into the creative realm of things. For a non-performer, it's if you just aren't paying that. And I know that there are certain states that have certain laws where it takes a certain amount of days past due for it to be considered non-performing. I don't know what that is for every state yet. But effectively, if the borrower isn't paying, then it becomes non-performing. Now, banks want to get rid of that. The reason being is it doesn't look good on their books if you have John Doe, Jane Doe, who are borrowers, but they're just not paying. And banks can foreclose on those properties if they wanted to. But the problem with that is it takes time, takes additional resources, and they may not want to deal with that headache. So what they'll do is they'll just get it off their books by selling it to other investors or even other banks who have teams or who want to buy these quote unquote toxic assets at a deep discount. And investors like myself, we will want to come in to figure out a way that we can work with the borrower. Because sometimes life happens, right? Healthcare, for example, that is one of the biggest blind spots, I think, in personal finance. You can't predict how you will get sick, if you will ever get sick. And I'm willing to bet that 99% of the general population does not have the amount of money they would need in the event of a catastrophic health event.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It does. It makes total sense. And it's something that most people don't think about. And most of us think that kind of thing won't happen to us.
Agreed.
But you're right. I mean, there are a lot of people who could not afford to absorb something like that. Especially, I couldn't imagine not having insurance.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, that could just be a real severe thing if you didn't have insurance and something like that happened.
So if you're purchasing a performing note, you are basically coming in and taking the position of the bank. So for your loan, Adam, if hypothetically I could buy it and I'd become the bank, so you, instead of paying whomever bank you're paying today, you would just pay me. But I would assume the exact terms that are happening now, because that's the contract that the originator set. If the borrower is paying, then these are the terms until the life of the loan. In a non-performer, that's when you can get even more creative, because you're trying to find a way to make this borrower reperform, ideally. And you can get creative. Let's say they owe $20,000 in late payments or what they call arrears. And you know that that's not necessarily going to happen, but you know that they can afford, say, $7,000. So you'll ask them to pay the $7,000 up front, and you'll forgive the first $10,000 or whatever you want to get them paying again. You can lower their interest rate. You can lower their monthly payment because you are coming in and they have violated the original contract. You can get creative and figure out a way that works for not only the borrower, but you as the investor.
Oh, that's really interesting. And I think a lot of people are curious how you make money in note investing. And we're definitely touching on the fringe of that. So what's the primary way you think people make money in note investing?
Interest is the biggest one for performing notes.
Okay.
You're coming in and assuming the bank's position. So if, let's say you want an 8% interest, okay, well then you buy a note that has around 8% interest, and now you're getting those payments over the term of the loan for that 8% interest. For non-performing, generally speaking, you're buying at a much deeper discount. And even if you had to expense or the workout costs, as they call it, paying for, let's say, lawyers or servicing fees, that money you would put into your calculation so that you would still come out on top. And when it comes to non-performing, there are a multitude of different strategies. Because you're buying at a discount, there's a tremendous amount of equity potentially within that property. So if you were to buy a note at a discount and you had to foreclose, ideally you would have enough equity to cover your original investment and then some. You could sell that property, you could give it to a wholesaler and just say, I don't want it. I just want my money back to start over again. Really, it's up to you. You can buy and hold and turn it as a rental. You could turn it to Airbnb. It's really you're limited by your creativity.
Wow, yeah, that's really cool. I mean, there are a lot of aspects to this, and it's pretty interesting that you can just sort of pick or target an interest rate that you're looking for, some kind of a return on your money, and then when you find one of those, just buy the note and get that. So, how do you find these notes?
That is something that I struggled with the last few months that I've really hunkered down and figured out this is what I wanted to do. There are a lot of ways that people are saying. One of the ways is through LinkedIn, typing in who the asset managers are, and then going about it is adding them on LinkedIn, letting them know what you're looking for, building a relationship that way. And when you have that relationship, what the asset manager will do is they'll send you their tape of notes that they want to get rid of. And a tape is basically just an Excel spreadsheet for a list of different notes. And the process goes, you figure out which ones you want, you make a bid on those against however many investors are looking at that tape. So you really don't know, right? And you do your best to calculate a bid that makes the most sense for you. And it's the same way if you were trying to make an offer on a single family property or multifamily property, there's just a certain threshold at a number. You're thinking to yourself, if it gets here, I'm done. If it gets any past this number, I'm not going to make an offer. So there's going to be a counter negotiation back and forth. Another way you can actually find these notes is getting in touch with those owners of seller finance notes. So like we had talked about earlier, that seller who sold you that hypothetical property for that $900,000 note, they could sell that note to an investor who just wants that safe payment, if you will, or that safe asset. The benefit to that seller is they get their money back. So not only did they get the $100,000 that they were looking for as a down payment, they got that, let's say, $900,000 remaining by selling that note to somebody who wants to assume their position.
Ah, nice. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot. I'm hearing a lot of motivation in wanting to get the money quickly, so then they can turn around and do something else with it. So, yeah, that's really fascinating. What is it that you like about note investing, Kevin? Why did you choose this identity?
The first reason why I chose note investing actually stemmed from a podcast I had heard about when I was in California. I was driving around, I can't remember where, but it was on Bigger Pockets. Dave Van Horn was a guest. He's the president and fund manager of PPR Notes. He has a book out on note investing. I would check it out. I think it's Bigger Pockets. Just type in Bigger Pockets note investing book and it will come up. But he was talking about how you can help people stay in their homes, like we were talking about. Bigger banks generally don't really want to spend the time or care to, and that's their prerogative, right? That they don't want to help people stay in there. They want their money as soon as possible. If you're not paying, that's kind of your fault. Let's move on. But a smaller investor has that freedom, that flexibility to work with the borrower. And from the people that I've talked to that do that, that is one of the first reasons they talk about. They love being able to help people, give them a second chance. And then the added benefit is you get to make a nice return. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You're helping somebody stay in their home. And some people have talked about how the borrowers have cried because they've been given a second chance. They've just been listened to when other investors or banks just won't give them the time of day. And that sense of fulfillment is huge. It just strikes a chord in my heart, if you will.
Yeah,
so
I love
that aspect.
Me too, man. That's cool. And we're going to have to do an upcoming show on the big why, because, you just hit on something there that's really that's personal to both of us about investing. So it sounds like there's potentially quite a bit of work involved, just like everything in investing. I think you and I have both learned in our own areas how it's a lot harder than some people make it sound, right? I mean, people make it kind of sound easy to get out there and start investing, but if you're serious about finding a niche and really becoming an expert at it, and really making moves in a big way, it's anything but easy. It's a lot of work, and I'm curious if there's a way to passively invest. Let's say I had some capital and I just wanted to be able to invest with you in that way. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, so it's similar to being able to do that for multifamily or single family or investing in, say, somebody's company. It's that same capacity. There's joint ventures that you can do. And I've seen some people say like a 50-50 split, where the person brings up the capital, the investor does all of the work, and they split the returns 50-50. It's my understanding that each joint venture is structured differently, and it's not just 50-50 split. That's something you'd have to negotiate with your investor. But yes, you can absolutely do that. And one of the best ways that I know would be to, let's say, a self-directed IRA. If you had this money sitting in a 401k, which you're not going to use till you retire anyway, you could roll it over to a self-directed IRA. Hello?
Okay, we're back. I lost audio right in the middle of that.
Well, where did you lose audio?
You were talking about if you have money in a 401k.
Okay, give me 1 second. If you have money in a 401k and you're not going to be able to access it 59.5 anyway, and you want to either diversify or try something different, you can roll that money over into a self-directed IRA and invest in whatever you want except collectibles and life insurance. That whatever you want involves a lot of people use real estate. We can do a whole episode on the creative things people are doing to grow that. And you can grow it tax-free. So you can partner up with somebody, lend them money from your self-directed IRA, make a 50%, not a 50% return, but make a profit by doing nothing except providing the capital.
Yeah, that's really attractive for someone who has money in a retirement account and wants to be able to grow it through investing in real estate. So thanks for that information. Just to let people know that those BP in note investing information with Dave Van Horn, we'll put that in the show notes. So we've got you covered there. And Kevin, this has been really fascinating. I've learned a lot about note investing, and I appreciate your insight on the topic.
Yeah, this is just a high level understanding, and everything that I know, I'm sharing with you and our listeners. And as I learn more, I'm definitely going to share the entire process, journey, and everything that I'm learning. If I lose the shirt off my back, I'll definitely be sharing those mistakes so that hopefully people don't make the same mistakes I do.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to us coming back to this and really going with you on this journey and kind of learning with you as you learn and grow on this note investing journey.
I can't wait. One of the common themes that we talk about is networking, because networking can lead to leverage, and leverage is what's going to get you out of the rat race faster. And one of the ways that we're networking is in the next couple of weeks, we're going to PodFest 2019, which is one of the largest events dedicated strictly to podcasting and content creators of podcasts. So we're looking forward to meeting anybody who is a podcaster. We'd love to network with you, learn about what you're doing and what's not working or what is working, so that we can all grow together.
Yeah, or if you're going to be at that event, definitely find us. You can look for the awesome Tech Guys Who Invest T-shirts that we'll be wearing around the event. Or if you're a local, say you live in Orlando and you just want the opportunity to hang out with us for a little bit, find us. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. That's it for this episode of Tech Guys Who Invest. This is Adam.
And this is Kevin. Thank you so much for listening to us. Don't forget to join our Facebook page, where we're building a community of investors so that we can share ideas, tips, and other ways to help us get out of the rat race. If you found value in this podcast, it would mean the world to us if you could share it with your network. Lastly, we love feedback. It's how we get better. So if you wouldn't mind spending 30 seconds and leaving us an honest review on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever platform you're using, that would be super sweet. If you want to get on Adam or Kevin's calendar, go to tgwipodcast.com/contact. We want to help you invest safely, wisely, and ultimately get you out of the rat race. Thanks again.